Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wolf Catholic Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Stassi, the campus minister at the University of West Georgia, joined as always by Father G. Father G, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Sean. Listen, we've had I think we tried to start recording about 45 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
First, I was going to take the computer outside because it's a beautiful, gorgeous spring day in Carrollton. And it just was not going to work with me sitting out there enjoying the sun and recording this. And then we had mic issues, typical stuff. Technology is great until it's not. So, but hey, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm fantastic as always. It is a beautiful day outside, and it's always a good day to be alive when you have the Lord in your heart. So
Amen.
today we're going to be talking about probably my favorite topic, other than Catholicism, and that is sports. And as you can tell, I'm wearing an Atlanta Falcons Kyle Pitts jersey, and Father G is repping his school pride, South Carolina Gamecocks,
Go
who
Gamecocks!
they've had a rough go recently, but he reps them with pride.
Yeah.
Uh, for y'all that are listening just to the podcast version, we have a video version on YouTube, so you can see our swag. A
Right.
priest with a South Carolina hat is probably a rare sight. But anyways, we're going to be talking about sports and Catholicism and really Christianity in general and how they kind of you know combined together in a sense, and the way that we can compare them. And we're going to be basing it kind of off of an article from the Elon News Network that they posted on kind of some testimonies from students and their experience with it. But first, we kind of just want to go over our experience with sports, which I'm sure are quite different. And I think that it'd be interesting to see where we're at with that before we dive into that. So, Father,
Absolutely.
if you want to start with
I
what
just want to say, Sean, when he first sent this article, I was like, Elon News Network, is that does Elon Musk have his own news
of
site or
course he
news
does.
service? And I was like, oh, it seems like it's a Christian college somewhere, Elon
Correct.
University. So
Yes. Yep. Elon University is a small Christian college. I don't know if it's necessarily Catholic. I think it's just Christian.
yeah,
Um,
I think just based on what I was reading in the article, it seems to be like an evangelical Christian
correct.
Bible based kind of a school. So
Yep.
yeah, so the first sport is we're going to figure out if your mic can stay in focus, Sean. Um,
Right. Right. Yeah. It'll be fine.
it's okay. All right.
All right. So, Father, what is your experience with sports? What's your favorite sport? How have you kind of grown in the sport, or do you even care about sports at all, or what's your
Right.
perspective on it?
So it's not like, when growing up when you played Trivial Pursuit, like I would dread getting like the sports cards. I knew nothing about like who did what when.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not very athletic. I've never enjoyed it. But I mean, it's not like I hate sports.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not my passion. However, so two things. One, as y'all know, or some people might know, that part of my childhood was in India, and in India, the sport is cricket, right? And cricket is a national passion. There's no way you can grow up in India and be oblivious to cricket. And we used to play, like friends and I would play it just anywhere on the side of the street, behind the house, in someone else's garden and lawn. Like you just see kids playing cricket everywhere all over India. So like growing up, when I was like maybe 9, 10 years old, we'd play cricket, and I remember one of the most electrifying moments was when India won the World Cup Cricket Championship. Way
Mm-hmm.
back, I'm dating myself in 1983. I was a wee lad then. Um, the last time India won was just like 2 years ago since then. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a big deal. Like the whole country went nuts. It was just awesome. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when I moved to the U.S. and I went to USC, um, I really started getting into American football just to try and appreciate and enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm.
I won't know a lot of the technicalities of plays and so on, but I enjoy the game. I enjoy rooting for college football. Being a South Carolina Gamecock fan is kind of tough,
Mm-hmm.
but I spent some time in Athens, and so I do have a soft spot for national champs, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
And I remember the first time I went to a Carolina game in 2001. Oh, sorry, 2000. Lou Holtz just was the new coach.
Right.
And after, I want to say, an 11 or 12 game losing streak, we beat New Mexico State. And the next week we beat Georgia. And it was just electrifying just being in the stadium with like 80,000 other
Mhm.
college students and just going crazy. It was a lot of fun. So I've enjoyed watching college football since then. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. If you come to America from another country, you probably are like, what is going, especially the South, you're probably like, what in the heck are these people going crazy about, especially college football? Like, geez Louise, these people are psychos. Uh,
right.
but it's just,
It does look a little violent from the outside. It's like what you got a bunch of dudes like punching each other, jumping on each other. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's definitely violent. And so my short backstory, I'm 20. I just turned 28. I grew up playing all the sports, football, baseball, basketball, track. Football is my favorite just because I love the team. It's the best team sport. It's where you grow and just camaraderie and fellowship, and it's just amazing the relationships you build and the things you learn as a person going through that because you're basically almost going to war every day in practice, even hitting each other, and you can't help but grow when you do that. And I've always just had this strong passion for football and sports in general, but specifically football. And I played in college at Berry College, and it's just I don't know. That was like my source of objective good when I didn't have God or when I didn't accept God.
Right.
Um, and I think that's kind of why I see Christ in these sports, and I see that it could be a common ground for us as Catholics and Christians to kind of build on that and to evangelize almost. And to you students out there that are playing sports, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when you bleed, you sweat, you work with these individuals, your teammates, for more than 40 hours a week almost, and you're talking with them nonstop, and you can't help but kind of see the beauty in that and want to kind of, especially if you're Christian, it can be a great place to share your faith in a way that's accepted because you're already doing something that is that you're growing in relationship with. And I wish that I would have been approached more by my teammates who were Christian to invite me to a Bible study. I think all we had was campus outreach when I was in college, and it just wasn't. It didn't satisfy much for me at all, and it seemed like I was just kind of a means to an end as opposed to being actually cared about. And like for if I would have had like the quarterback or any football player come up to me and be like, "Hey, we're starting a men's Bible study. Would you want to come?" Even if I thought it was dumb, I probably would have still did it, just because I have that relationship with the team, and I don't want to like let them down. Almost, I want to be there for them and grow with
Right.
them. And so that's kind of what sparked this topic is just how we can like how can you guys use sports as a common ground to share your faith, whatever faith that may be, but
Right.
specifically in this instance, Christianity and the love of Christ.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's a very good point, Sean. I mean, even before we get to like supernatural faith or just natural faith, the different religions and so on, there's something about sports that just is so human, and it connects us with like our true humanity, and it's also a great school of virtue,
yeah.
school of growing in good habits and dispositions to do good, like working together, not thinking only about your own glory, teamwork, self discipline, self control. Like,
Mhm.
the scriptures even use that metaphor, that analogy of the athlete will fast and strive to get an earthly crown, an
Mhm.
earthly award, but we do that, we restrain our appetites,
Yep.
we train our bodies, so as to excel in this area, and to excel in it together, especially in team sports, but even otherwise. So I
Mhm.
think that there's something truly human, and it makes us more human when we enter into the world of sports with that open spirit, So I think it's great for everybody, which is why I think it's
Mhm.
part of most places, as part of the education, as
Yeah.
children grow up, they're introduced to sports and
Mhm.
so on. So. but for everyone, it's a school of humanity and virtue, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and I also to go with that, just on the humanity side, is it brings everyone together, not just the players, but just the team like aspect of it also spreads to the parents, to the fans,
The
and
family,
and
communities,
right, and everyone puts aside their differences, right? If you're wearing the same color, like hat, or if you're supporting the same team, or even if you're just a football fan, baseball fan in general, you can always talk about the history of the sport, the beauty of your team, and the players and everything. And it's a very interesting dynamic to see how it brings everyone together. Such a simple thing as a game, um,
right?
but it's so beautiful to see everyone come together. Like whenever we're season ticket holders for the Falcons, and me and my wife loves sports, by the way, especially football, and she is a genius when it comes to football, which is very rare. So I'm very lucky. But whenever we go to Falcons games, there is everyone from every different race, country, even the other team's fans. Everyone's very nice to each other, and it's very like we're in this together. Like, come on, and you can kind of take that to the faith. If imagine if we had the same zeal of Christ as we did for the Georgia Bulldogs. You
Right.
know, imagine if we went on Sunday and instead of saying "roo roo roo, go dogs," we said Christ, we want you. Christ, we need you, all together instead of mumbling it, And I just think that there's something to gain from sports as well when we see
Yeah.
the objective good it provides humanity. So,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, that article that you shared, and it's an article, we'll put that in the show notes below.
yep.
It's just talking about like just how there's this overlap, at least in the United States, between college athletics and really high school and all athletics, between
hmm
sports and religion. Um, so, what struck you about that when you were reading through that?
So the thing that struck me most, and I think that this holds true today, because this was in 2016, I believe, but they pointed out a stat from 2011 that said that 75% of student athletes identified as Christian, which I believe is far and above the overall population of our youth uh,
Right.
that identifies as Christian. And that kind of makes me think of like why is that? And I think that the answer is kind of the stuff we pointed out. Um, that there you can see like same type of characteristics in both, in the beauty of the sport as you grow in it, as you practice the virtues, as you practice habitual work ethic and stuff and practice. You can see the same thing in terms of your religion, and so they may be more diligent in their faith. If they grew up in the faith, they may be more diligent and habitual in their prayer life, in their church life, as opposed to kind of not having sports or anything to kind of build those relationships on teamwork wise, habitual virtues, with practice and stuff. And whenever they get done with high school, they just kind of go and do their own thing, and they don't really care for the religion anymore. They don't see a need for it. But when you pair it with sports, when you're playing sports, you're always thanking God. When you have that faith, you're always thanking God for the success, thanking God for the ability to be healthy, thanking God for another season, thanking God for your teammates, all those type of things. It pairs well and it builds the foundation of your faith. And what I got from this article as well is this young lady. She says every aspect of the game is intertwined with my religion, and that's I mean that makes a lot of sense to me, and I could see that. I think that's why I love football so much. Is I can see the intertwined religion aspect and Christianity and Christ in the game itself. Which I know it sounds weird when you're just watching football, but it is so beautiful because when you watch the game on Saturday or Sunday, especially from me who's played college football or anyone that's played football in high school, the work that went into that, the game planning, the practice, the blood, the sweat, the injuries, all the hardships, the coaching, and when you go out there on Saturday and Sunday and you see the end result, it's a beautiful thing to see it work, and I think that's kind of intertwines with religion, and that's what struck me is that stat and what this young lady said,
Right.
uh, and I think that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I mean, we still see it. From since 2011, I think religiosity in America has declined a lot over the past 10, 12 years. but you see the display of religious identity in some way, whether it be Catholic or in some other way Christian,
Hmm.
or even any other faith. It's still very acceptable. Um, there's controversy, of course. I think there was a recent Supreme Court case about maybe it was a high school football coach, I
Yep.
think, or who went to the Supreme Court about his just praying with students, and I think that was upheld as
Yep.
religious right. Is not seen as the state imposition of religion. People are free to opt out. So yeah, there's some controversies. I remember when I went to the ball games. Sorry, when the football games in South Carolina. Like one of the campus chaplains would always be invited to lead a prayer. It would be a non-denominational prayer. I saw that done at UGA as well. I mean, I think it's still
Yep.
very much part of the tradition of just football or just sports and the connection to civic um, engagement and being part of a community, and then recognizing that as a community we receive our being and everything from a higher being. Um,
Hmm.
it's still very much part of the culture here in the U.S., and I think it's a good thing. People, if people don't believe in God and so on, they're welcome to not participate. But I see it as a definite good, as a reminder again that human reality is not is not self-contained. It's oriented one first of all to each other, but then all of us in relationship and individually to that higher power. Um, and I don't know. Did you hear about the? Well, I mean, we just had the Super Bowl and
Hmm.
there's one the kicker, the chief kicker of the Chiefs. Um,
Yes.
yeah, Harrison Butker. Are you familiar with his story at all? Or
I just know he fell away from the faith and he came back, I believe. Um, and I mainly know this because he's on the Hallow app and
yeah.
he does some like sports Hallow app prayer type things. So
Well,
I just know he's
Harrison was a student at Georgia Tech, and he played
Catholic.
for Georgia Tech.
Okay.
And I know a lot of the Georgia Tech students. I don't. I've met Harrison, but I wouldn't say I know him personally. But I
Right.
know several of his friends, and it was through the campus ministry at Georgia Tech that he kind of rediscovered his love for the Lord and for the church. And he's a very, very faithful, devout, practicing Catholic. I think he got married several years ago,
Yep.
um, and yeah, I mean, and he's not ashamed to hide his love for the Lord and love for the
Yeah.
church, which is great to see. Um,
Yeah. And he's a two-time Super Bowl champ.
that's right.
So that's
That's
not
right.
bad either. He's got the best quarterback to ever play, in my opinion, on his team. But he
You
has to
know,
kick the game winners. So,
yeah. So I think EWTN, the Catholic Cable Network, they just did
yep.
an interview with him like last week. I'll try and dig up the link. That'd
Hmm.
be worth watching. We can certainly share that with whoever listens to us here. It's a great interview of just what does it mean to be a Catholic in the world of
Hmm.
sports, and with all his success, like how does he deal with that, the celebrity, um,
Right.
and how his faith keeps him grounded. So.
Right. So what would you say to someone who's not Christian and plays sports, especially a team sport, where you see a lot more Christian peers than you would necessarily on campus
Right.
or in the classroom? Like, what would you say they should look for? Because I know, like, so whenever I was in high school or college and they were praying and stuff, I would pray along. Like, I would say the Our Father and stuff, but I didn't necessarily believe too much of it. I was just doing it to not look like an atheist.
To kind of
uh,
fit in.
to fit in, yeah, exactly. So what would you like? What's the next step if you're like what are they? What is this all about? And why should I care? Or where is this coming from? Is it just so they can be better at sports, or
Right.
like what's there to it? And how should they go about reaching out to say one of their teammates or coach about the faith? And yeah, just maybe what steps should they take?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Sean. So, I mean, first of all, I should acknowledge that for some people, those kinds of overt displays of faith can be a turnoff, right?
Right.
So, if people have either grown up maybe in very sort of strong Christian households and they've sort of rebelling against it, like it's a reminder of that, and they're just like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. or if people come from a different religious tradition, like, America is a religiously diverse country. It may still be majority Christian, um, but we have people who come from Hindu backgrounds, from Muslim backgrounds, Jewish backgrounds. I think we respect everyone's religious traditions, and we certainly invite them to um, if they are religious themselves, to that's something we share in common. You know,
Hmm.
we take this belief in God and a
Hmm.
higher power seriously. So that's an area of common ground. And
Yep.
even if the prayer is overtly Christian, that I think we can do it in a way too that's inclusive of people as well. Um, but for others who maybe have no religious background, or they're just wondering about this, I think it's completely okay, like, to with a trusted friend. You've got to have trust, right?
Right.
The trusted friend, just go ask us, like, hey, like, do you like, what does it mean to you, to like, who's God for you? Or if there's something going on in my life, like, if like there's some stuff going on in my family,
Hmm.
and like I'm just facing those questions about, like, why are there bad things? Why does evil happen? Or I'm struggling with something,
Hmm.
like, hopefully, um, a religious Christian fellow athlete, is someone you can turn to
Yeah.
just for human support. But also, if there's questions, then you can say, "Hey, let's talk more." So, I think in the world of sports, again, this is just conjecture. I mean, you've experienced this and lived this more, well, a lot more. I mean, I haven't. So, um, but like with any other kind of a group, um, when religion becomes just a way of being part of the in group, it loses some of its power, right?
Yeah.
It loses some of its appeal, and its authenticity. It can still have some good, because there's good in religion and following God overall. Um, but I think it's important. I think for especially Christian athletes and those who are involved, to be to see this as an opportunity to share one's own walk with the Lord, right? I remember you saying, Sean, that you wish that someone had invited me or talked to me a
Hmm.
little deeper level back then when you were at Berry College.
Yeah.
Um, but again, not in a way where you never treat people as projects, right?
No.
It's just, it has to be authentic, and has to, for the
Right.
person, for the believer himself or herself, has to come from a genuine love of the Lord. Like, hey, I have something here that I've received, and
Hmm.
I want to share it, and I think you will enjoy getting to know it as well. Never in a way of, like, you're terrible and your life sucks, and here, like, let me give you the path to, like, this is our version of Amway or whatever, right? That's not what sharing the gospel is about. It has to it
Right.
has to involve a genuine love and a concern for the other person. Um, so yeah, so I don't know if that covers a
Yeah.
variety of different things there. So
Yeah, definitely. I just thought about that question because I like what we said earlier with my own experience. I was thinking about what I would have wanted back then, and how desperately I was craving Christ without knowing it, and wondering if someone could have, been led by the Holy Spirit to open the door for me. But that, that it's all God's providential will. So I'm glad everything happened how it did happen. Um,
real quick on that, right? When you said you were craving Christ but didn't know it, like, looking back then, what
yeah.
were you craving? Like, you obviously wouldn't have said I was craving Christ, but what was it, as far as you can talk about
So at that time, I was probably craving
Yeah,
attention,
right.
positive affirmation from my peers, success in the sport, but also success in like my friends' eyes as just a person in general, someone that they look at as being a good guy. So I always took pride in being a good guy. And for some reason, they always thought that meant I was Christian, but I never, yeah, it didn't strike me as, that I didn't strike to anyone as a good following Christian, but I don't know. I guess because I was a good guy, I didn't treat people like garbage. They thought I was a Christian, which I guess that's a good
That's a
thing.
good thing. That, if that's the
Uh,
reputation of Christians still in our culture and world, that's good.
right, right. But yeah, I think I was just craving personal glory through pride. The sin of pride was very strong in my life, and it usually was swept under the rug, and went unnoticed, and I wouldn't address it, and it kind of manifests itself.
Right.
And I was really focused on my career. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was going through animal science degree, which is a very difficult degree. And so I was really just wanting to do good in my classes, to make my family happy, that type of stuff. I really didn't have, I say I was craving Christ because I needed that foundation in my life to give my life meaning. And when I say that, I mean that self-sacrificial love that I had never experienced. Because what I found is when you give yourself over to Christ, your whole life changes. You to sin basically means to turn away, if I remember correctly.
To miss the
Um,
mark. To miss the
to
mark.
to miss
Yeah.
the mark, yeah, and to completely like change, yeah. And so what I did was, when I found Christ and made the switch and the Holy Spirit changed my heart, like that made me realize how much I was craving Christ back then. And so you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of what I mean when I say I was craving Christ without knowing it, is I didn't know I needed that because I had preconceived notions of what Christianity was and what this Jesus Christ figure was. I viewed him as something people used for their benefit, to their
Mm-hmm.
gain.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, even if this guy is real, I don't want to have that. I don't want to use something like that to my own benefit.
To my own good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what I meant by
Yeah.
saying that.
And what do you think, based on where you were,
Mhm.
not where you are now, what do you think would have been helpful? You kind of alluded to it earlier, but would have been helpful.
Right.
Not
So,
from your perspective now, but
right,
something you would have that would have actually made sense to you in where you were.
right. If I talk to, so I had talked maybe to a couple guys, maybe loosely about the faith, just about what they're doing at the campus outreach or whatever. If they would have just, if because I said no many times, if they would instead just not just simply invited me, accepted my no and left, instead saying, well, would you be open to, coming to my dorm and, talking with where you are in your faith to me?
Or yeah, grabbing
Uh,
a coffee or something, right?
Grabbing a call, yeah, something simple like that. And it has to be from a friend, I think. So it
Right.
would have had to have been from someone I had some relationship with. So when in football you have position groups, and so I
Right.
was with the wide receiver group. If one of the wide receivers would have came up to me and said, hey, you want to go to this campus outreach event? I'm like, nah. He's like, oh, well, would you be interested in maybe tomorrow night meeting in the library and going over the faith, grab a cup of coffee or something like that? And I may have made an excuse, but I think that would have led me
Hmm.
to be more inclined to do that. And I think that's what I would have wanted. Not pushy, not like I'm using you just to say that I converted you, but a genuine, like what you were saying, a genuine ask.
A genuine
And
concern. Yeah.
yeah, so and I think that I
Great.
would have responded to that.
Well, good. I mean, there's a lot more we can talk about, but we're coming up on
Yeah.
almost 30 minutes now. So,
Yep. Yep. So you know what that means. It's
yeah.
time
What does
for
that mean,
the
Sean?
question of the
Okay.
day. So here's today's random question. If I am a student and I am thinking about the Catholic faith, discerning the faith, want to know more about the faith, what book should I read?
Mm. Well, you know, you can't beat the scriptures. Start with the New Testament always. As if the old is very difficult to navigate if you don't know the new and the connections between the two. But just as a sort of a basic introduction to the Catholic faith, there's an author by the name of Trent Horn. He works for a website called Catholic Answers. And by the way, if you have any questions about Catholicism,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, ask Sean, ask me. I can guarantee, like a lot of times, I'm just going to go and send you a
Yeah.
link from Catholic Answers. There's a
Mm-hmm.
website called Catholic Answers, so you can
We
get
can post
answers to
that
pretty much
in the bio.
every question that you have. There's tons of articles that go into it, and you can do it in a very very sort of non-threatening way,
Mm-hmm.
just from just from your dorm room, just from your computer.
Yep.
But he's a book by Trent Horn, and it's called Why We're Catholic. And I'm going to try and pull it up so you share the screen, and we'll definitely put it in. Um,
The description. Yep.
yeah, hang on. Let's see.
Catholic.
I think I still have several copies left in my office. So if anyone's interested, you can certainly get one. I'll bring some
Yeah.
arguments in her. Um, but it's very easy to navigate. So that's where I'd start.
Awesome. Awesome. Is it a long read or easy read?
It's a very easy read. It's very
Perfect.
accessible. It's not. It's written for like the average person, not for like a student of theology or something.
Right. Right.
Um, I think it's like maybe I don't know how big it is. Maybe 100 pages or something, 150 pages.
Yeah. Awesome. Good deal. And, if you guys have if any Catholics are out there have any other book recommendations, you can put them in the comments on our YouTube channel. Um, Also, don't forget to like, subscribe on everything, whatever you listen to the podcast. Give us a 5-star rating. That helps kind of get us out there. We're not making any money off of this. We just want to spread the word. Any support is greatly appreciated. If you have any questions you want answered for future podcasts, put them in the comments on our YouTube channel, or send us an email at thewolfcatholicpodcast.com. We do have a website, so we'll put that in the show notes as well, along with the other links that we have talked about on the show. But yeah, we're past 30 minutes. Like I said, guys, it'll be between 20 to 30 minutes. It could go over. Who knows? Daniel, one of our students who edits this, may make it under 30 minutes. So we'll see if he can work some magic. But thank you guys so much for listening to episode 2. And we're so grateful for all you guys out there, and know that we're praying for you. Thank you, Father G, again. And I pray you guys all have a blessed day. Thank you.
Okay. God bless you guys. See ya.